And in retrospect, now all these years later, I just wonder if there was something I was eating that would trigger it.
Carrie, how did you find carnivore?
Hi, Dave. Well, fancy you asking me that, right? I found Carnivore in 2022 in December quite by accident. And prior to that, I was in, I guess you would say ketovore, mostly meat already, a little bit of veg. And I'd been eating that way for quite a while. And honestly, it wasn't quite so much that I was just being strict or anything. It's just I'm too lazy to cook and I would just fix whatever's easy. So like I would steam up some broccoli with some cheese on it and then have some form of meat, you know. But I had been eating that way for quite a while, and I actually had gotten into just changing my diet in general. It was like late 2013 was when I first kind of started doing researching. And then in 2014, I went low carb at first, like basically avoiding seed oils and sodas, the things that everybody starts out doing. But it was more of a paleo style. In the beginning, I had found like Mark Sisson's website. I had found, oh my goodness, let's see, Michael Eads. He and his wife, they had done Protein Power, among other books. And so I found his website, Dr. Malcolm Kendrick. I had found his blog and everything. And so I just started going down the whole rabbit hole, and I just found myself going lower and lower carb. And another reason then that kind of came into that was that my mother was type 2 diabetic, and she had naturally been a very, a slender woman, and she used to be pretty active and everything. But she became diabetic in the early 2000s, and I could just tell like how her life was going. And then it got to where she was having to give herself shots, insulin shots. And then she just started getting where she was gaining a lot of weight. And then she didn't really have the energy to do the things that she used to do. And she prided herself, which is so, like if you'd known her when I was like young, she was the hippie type, she drank the herbal teas, and she took supplements, and she avoided the doctor like the plague. And then it's like, suddenly she was proud of herself for being this compliant patient. She would always, like measure out exactly, do all the calculations and, for whatever insulin she was going to need. And the thing is, like when my grandfather was diabetic, it was treated with diet. And when I had gestational diabetes, that was the same. I mean, I was just put on basically no white foods, like no bread, no potatoes, no sugar, that kind of thing. Basically, it was just meat and vegetables. So it was very surprising how my mother just sort of, I guess maybe it's hard giving up things that you like to eat, although she was never like, I don't know. It was just really odd that the contrast between the two people, the mother that she was when I was, young and like in my teens, and then versus the mother that she was later, and just, proud of herself for, taking her medication and managing her diabetes. But I saw that she was just getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And she ended up passing of congestive heart failure. And, she was a music lover like me, although I like my, rock, metal stuff. She was more into country, and that's how she ended up in Nashville, Tennessee. But she used to love to go to shows. And so I get that love of music from my parents. And she just got to where she couldn't go anymore, and just I felt like she was too fragile for her age, honestly, just like she couldn't breathe well and just everything. It was not good. And I didn't want to end up like that. For one thing, I hate needles. Not that I guess anybody loves them. I don't know, but I cannot give myself a shot. It's all I can do. Like there for a while, I was measuring my blood sugar to, track and stuff. And I would do the little finger pricks, and that was enough. I mean, but, to actually have to grab a hunk and, stick a needle in there, I just can't imagine doing that. So that was my motivation. I don't want to be diabetic. So that was my main focus on, really monitoring my diet and gradually going down that whole low carb. And then, like I said, gradually I just worked my way to ketovore. And then my neighbor around Christmas time of 2022 gave me these boxes of meat. He worked for a food supply company, and they had these boxes of meat, and if they didn't take them home, they were going to pitch them. And I mean, there was bacon in there, Canadian bacon, burger patties, all kinds of good stuff, good meats. And so I was like, wow, I'm going to have to, eat this. And I certainly didn't want it to go to waste. So I had my refrigerator packed full of this meat, but man, I ate on it for, quite a while. But it was really funny because maybe, I don't know, a few weeks after I had just started eating all this, and it wasn't like necessarily a conscious decision that I'm just going to be eating all meat, but I was scrolling on YouTube, and I already followed like some low carb people and stuff. And I'd sort of seen the carnivore idea, but it never really dawned on me to like consciously try it. But then I was scrolling through, and all these carnivore videos started popping up on my phone. And then I don't remember whose it was that I watched first, but I was like, oh my gosh, come to think of it, I guess I'm carnivore now, because I was like, when is the last time I had vegetables? And I couldn't tell you. So then that was it. That was just how I stumbled into carnivore. But a side effect that it has had, I know a lot of people do talk about weight loss, but there are certainly many non-scale victories. And for me, is my anxiety is gone. Like when I was around 20, I had just this, what I could only describe as a panic attack, and it was terrible. I felt like I was freaking out, like I was losing control, like it was just this huge feeling of overwhelm. And it just happened when I was at work one day. And I mean, my job wasn't bad or anything. It wasn't like I was in a stressful, it's just, it came out of nowhere. And I don't know where it came from, but it was terrible. And it actually lasted like a couple weeks. In other words, it lasted days. And it would ebb and flow, like it would get really, really bad. And then somehow it would like just calm down. It would just kind of be in the background, just kind of humming back there, but not really making itself obvious. It was just very bizarre. And then I never told anybody. I didn't realize what it was, that it was a panic attack. I later found out that's what they were. And the ones I had after that weren't quite as bad as the first one. And they didn't last as long, but they would just pop up. And in retrospect, now all these years later, I just wonder if there was something I was eating that would trigger it, because I could never really put any rhyme or reason to it. Like, I would be like, well, I'm not stressed about bills. I mean, I'm not stressed about my work situation. I'm not stressed about this. I have a good place to live. Everything was fine. And yet these weird panic attacks.
So, like, I've never experienced panic attacks, but that feeling of, it having the panic and then it kind of moving off into the background, but it's always kind of humming there in the background. That must be a horrible feeling.
It is. It was very, so I sort of, in a sense, got accustomed to it. And after I had gone low carb and, then as I gradually reduced my carbs, it was actually a lot better, but it would still happen on occasion. It just wasn't near as frequent, and it wasn't near as severe the lower carb I went. But I have not had a panic attack in the approximately 18 months that I've been on carnivore. I've had some situations to come up. Quite a few of them dealing with water, like water in my yard or water in my house. So, these are situations that normally would have like just sent me into a mode. And the only reason I never used to beg people for help before, and my kids would help me. It's not that, but I mean, it's just pride. I just want to be the person to take care. But so I would have these panic attacks by myself trying to deal with stuff. But it's weird because now I just handle it. Like I just logically stop and think, okay, what is it that I need to do? Oh, I guess I need to turn off the main shutoff valve. Okay. Yeah, I've got the T-bar over there, and I just logically go through it, go outside and, turn the water off. And then I'm like, okay, well now I need to call the water company, and I need to call, the plumber and, just step through rather than, oh my God, oh, I need to call my son, which used to
Right.
be my first thought. I didn't, but that used to be my first thought is I need to call my son.
So it's kind of like before you had this problem and it was just like this big overwhelming problem, but now it's like the problem's still there, but you can say, okay, well, I'm going to take this little part of the problem and work on it. And now I'll take this part of the problem and work on it. And it's just step by step through the problem.
Yeah, and
Interesting.
it is amazing. I've also noticed a difference just in my work in general. It's like I can, and I problem solve all day. So it's funny that an anxious person would end up doing something, but I actually do like solving the problems in general. Now, once in a while, it would get a little like if there was just this urgent deadline. We usually do pretty well about preparing for those, but once in a while, there would be something like that that would come up. But now I've had some of those situations come up lately, and it's just, I don't know. I've dealt with it's just, I'm just like, okay, I know I have to do this. We need to get it done quickly. But you know what? Let's pretend it doesn't get done. Is it going to be the end of the world? And, most of the time I can say no, it's not going to be the end of the world. Matter of fact, I haven't really said that it would be in quite some time. And I don't know if that's just because I'm better at coping or, that I'm not catastrophizing because it's very easy to do. It is so easy to just, you feed on a thought and then it just grows and grows. It's the wrong kind of snowball, and it just gets bigger and bigger.
So, I mean, this is a big change, a big improvement. Have you noticed anything else changing around that might be, helping this or may have laid the foundation for this improvement?
I have had improved everything. My mood is great in general. Um, we all have our times where we have to concentrate or things might not be so blissful, but my mood is generally very good and very stable. Energy. Um, I just find I've got more energy to squeeze things in. Now, I will say that I may have a few excuses due to, the position that I'm in now at work and, some more responsibility. So I haven't quite been doing as much on my channel lately, but still, I have the energy to work longer days and it doesn't really bother me. So, and of course, I love, hiking and stuff. And it's like, so getting out and doing that, I have a friend that I go hike with, and I'm not sure if it's carnivore or what, but there was this hike that he took me on about, well, it was before I went carnivore in 2022. And I was like, are you trying to kill me? I mean, you were reaching and grabbing for tree. I mean, it was ridiculous. Okay. And and it was like 8 miles. And I was like, are you trying to kill me? And we recently hiked that same trail and I made it. Oh, I had to turn around and go back the first time. So I'm not really sure if it was carnivore exactly, but I'll tell you, I could not do that trail before. And I have been doing morning walks. I've been a lot more consistent with them in the last, since I've been carnivore. And I think maybe the energy, so it's kind of feeding on itself, the energy that I have now, then that is just encouraging me to do more and more. So I was proud of myself for doing that hike because it was pretty intense.
Yeah. Oh, nice. So, um, have you always been slim? Like you didn't do this for weight loss at all?
No, oh no, no. When I was when my brother and I were teenagers, it was hilarious. We were the two tall, skinny kids, in high school, and we we would pool our money to buy Weider protein powder in the 80s, and that stuff was god awful too. It tasted so bad, and it didn't do anything. We would lift weights. I mean, we tried so hard to like put on some muscle and some shape. And I mean, it's not like we didn't look sick or anything, but I mean, we were just really tall and thin. And my other brother, who's 10 years younger than me, is the same. He's tall and thin like that. And so, yeah, I have always been like this. And now I weigh what I weigh, though I did lose weight. Like when I went low carb, I had lost some. And then I just sort of stayed at like about 125. I'm 5'9". So I stayed at about 125. And I had gone to the doctor after being on carnivore for what, about maybe 5 months. And I had lost down to 110 pounds, which is so I lost 15 pounds. And they asked me if I ate meat, and I think they thought I was like vegan, you know. And I said, "Oh yeah, I eat lots of meat, lots of good fatty meat." And they're like, "Oh, okay, good." Actually, but I had lost some, and I think they were just wondering maybe if I was trying, like maybe just trying like to lose weight or something. And I think they were kind of feeling
They're
to
probably
say,
like,
you know, did I starve myself? And I didn't.
yeah, hope she's not living on lettuce leaves or something. It's,
Oh
yeah,
God, no.
yeah.
So I've gained a little bit of that. I've been doing body weight exercises and being more conscious about eating breakfast. Meal prep is key for me because it's easy for me to not eat. And I know that my daughter just doesn't know how that's possible. She'll be like, I live to eat. But so I have to be cognizant. So I've been eating breakfast, and I did add full fat Greek yogurt into my diet. And that seems to, you know, between eating the breakfast and then adding that full fat Greek yogurt in. And my breakfast is pretty simple. I mean, it'll be like ground beef with egg, maybe sprinkle a little bit of cheese possibly, and then strips of bacon. I take scissors and just cut the bacon up. I had already pre-cooked it. So I pre-cook all this stuff, and then I just mix it up and stick it in the microwave. And that's breakfast. Yeah.
So on that, how often are you eating throughout the day?
At least a couple times. A couple times a day is usually it. I still just can't. I never have eaten 3 meals a day, and I never ate breakfast at all. Usually what I would eat would be like a almost like brunch, but then not eat anything until dinner time. I mean, that's how I just usually was anyway. But a lot of times, especially, you know, working and everything, if I don't eat breakfast right away, I can get busy and working on something, and the next thing I know, it's noon. So I make sure that I have my stuff all meal prep. That way I can just warm it up real quick, and then I can bring it upstairs, which I know it's not good to eat breakfast while you're working, but I can't eat first thing. So if I have my breakfast there, though, then it's handy for me to just grab it, you know, after a little while. Or if I'm just at a point, I can stop and run down, warm it up, and come back up.
So, there's most people that go carnivore, one of the goals or one of the side effects they're happy about is the weight loss. But there are a number of people that want to try carnivore, but they're worried because they're not overweight. They're worried about losing too much weight. So do you feel that that's something that has been an issue, or like you don't even have to worry about that or think about that, like the weight continuing to come off?
Well, mine did stop coming off eventually, and then it's crept back up. Um, I would say right now I'm probably at about 115, maybe, which is an accomplishment, you know, because believe it or not, it is. I just used to remember seeing how many calories make a pound, and me and my poor brother would try to eat, to and of course you talking about protein and stuff, like we didn't carb up or anything. I mean, we really didn't exactly know what we were doing, I don't think. But I mean, we thought if we just, if we ate a lot and then plus took this protein stuff. And so I guess the whole thing is it's like more like what your body does with what you eat than it is like how much you eat or whatever. So, but my thought is for somebody who is concerned, you can, I would say the vast majority, even if you're just normal weight, I don't think, I mean, I think that like my brothers and I are truly like true ectomorphs. And if you look up the body types that you learned about, like in science class, you have your endomorph, ectomorph, and mesomorph. And the ectomorphs are the tall, slim people. Now, most of us fall, like we might be partially mesomorph and part ectomorph. So we might be like tall and slim yet muscular. Or some of us might be mesomorph, endomorphs. So you can gain muscle, but you tend to have fat, more fat than others. So most people are a combination of those. I don't think that there are very many of us on the planet who are like true ectomorphs, but I actually do think I'm one of them, because it would be very easy for somebody to, if they didn't know me. I've got old pictures. I think I posted an old video. There's a picture of me standing next to my uncle, which incidentally, he's an ectomorph too. And Lord, he made me look petite. I'm 5'9", and he was like 6'6", but he was real slim guy, tall and slim. And he used to have a little MG car, which was funny. A little sports car, a little yellow MG sports car. But anyway, so he'd roll himself out of that. He was a character. But anyway, it just goes to show. So I think the vast majority of people would not need to worry about losing too much. And I honestly think that if you pay attention, and I could definitely do better. And so that's my goal, and that's what I'm working on, is to be just to make sure that I eat, because like I said, I can get busy and it's easy for me just not to. So I have to just like put an alarm or do something that will trigger me to eat. And we can, especially women, I think, when you're not as accustomed to eating as much, like you don't eat, you're accustomed to restricting. And so then you feel bad already because you're eating meat, since you decided to go carnivore. So now you're feeling bad because you're eating meat and it's got fat on it. So then inside, you're like, I'm not going to eat all of it. I'm just going to eat half or whatever. And there are people who do restrict. And I think that happens to quite a few people. And so just being cognizant of that too. But I don't think people need to just worry. I've heard people ask Dr. Berry, for example, like, well, I'm losing weight, and he'll ask, well, or you think you're losing too much weight? Well, how much do you weigh? Whatever. But then he'll also say, well, are you eating enough? Are you restricting? And women will tend to do that. They can't
Yeah.
believe that you can just eat all this meat.
Because it just goes against everything that we've been kind of trained into believing about food and diet and all that stuff, right?
Oh, it does. And it even felt weird to me. Like I never, what you would call, like bought into the whole thing one way or another exactly. I've never been like a horrible junk food eater, and I never was that much into sodas. And of course, a part of that was the way we were raised, and we didn't have them in the house. We didn't have what you would call, my mother called it junk food, and we didn't have it. Part of it was because we were too broke.
Have you went to the doctor said, "Are you eating meat?" And you said, "Yes, I am." Have you been back to the doctor since then?
Oh yes, I have. And they he doesn't, I think his LDL or my LDL is a bit disconcerting to him because it's like pushing 300. My LDL is like 290 something. And it had been like I don't know, like 220 or something like that. And before, and this was just when I was ketovore. And so, boy, when I went carnivore, I mean, my LDL just went, and my triglycerides are low. I mean, they've been low for a long time. So I have about a 1-to-1 triglyceride HDL ratio. So my HDL is 77, and I think my triglycerides are like 76. So that they're right there. It's a 1-to-1 ratio. So that's supposed to be really good. Um, I had him check. My doctor's he's pretty cool. And I've been seeing him for years, ever since he got out of medical school, and he had signed on to this practice, and a friend of mine went to him. And so I've known him all this time. So like, I'll just tell him, like, I'm not taking statins, and he doesn't give me a hard time. But I did get a CAC scan done. And so I had the doctor, he did not order it. I purchased it myself. I was at a festival, and for whatever reason, this company was selling them. They weren't doing them there, but they were selling this little package thing, and you get this scan. It scans your lungs and your heart. Okay. So I was like, oh, so is this a CAC? Yeah. And they showed me on it. So I was like, cool. So I scheduled that, went and had it done. I didn't tell my doctor because I was like, if it's bad, he's just not going to know. I'm not going to tell him. So anyway, so I get the results back, and I honestly, I was afraid to open the email. I was like, oh man, but I opened it, and it was 0. My CAC score, 0, zilch, not a nothing. So I downloaded a PDF of that sucker and printed it off too. And so I carried it to then when I went to see him next, and I said, well, I'm deadpan. I said, I went and got a CAC scan done. And he says, did I ask you to do that? I said, no. And so I handed him the paper, and he opens it up and he looks, and he was like surprised because my LDL, like I said, is like pushing 300. So, and he's been, not that he nags, he doesn't nag, but every time I see him, your LDL's, and so he just looked at that paper and he said, well, you can't get better than 0.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really
And so
good.
then the nurse called, later about my lab results, and she says, and we won't worry about statins with your 0 CAC score. She was giving me my results of everything. So basically they weren't recommending anything now. So maybe I won't get now that they've got that on file, they can satisfy checking that box. And I know why the doctors recommend the statins, because they're prisoners of the, insurance companies and stuff. And they have to, in order to be a provider, they have to tick off all these boxes. And I don't begrudge the poor doctors. I feel sorry for them for the most part, unless they're jerks. And even then, I sort of understand why they're jerks. But
yeah. Yeah, I guess, and yeah, you can kind of understand how they get into the situation, right? Like, you don't have to like it to understand the situation, right? It's like, yeah.
well, and they're so idealistic. They come out of medical school. They want to help people, but then they get indoctrinated while they're in there. And then you have to buy into a practice, maybe, but you definitely have to get that new car, and you don't have to. That's kind of sarcasm, but I mean, that's what doctors do, because they've gone all this time without, they delayed gratification. They've had these long hours, and just, it's a grueling, difficult thing to do, to, an accomplishment to become a medical doctor. And so they held it in all this time, and now they're done. And so now they're practicing. So yeah, I'm going to buy the big house. I've got student loans, and then they get into this, just they're a cog, and it's all just algorithm, and it's, they type it into the computer, and it's just, I can imagine they're just so frustrated, and they don't have any autonomy at all. They can't make any decisions, and it's just sad.
Yeah, I mean, it's like someone, it's like any job really. You come out of university, get into a job, and then you get the mortgage, you get the car, you get married, you have the kids, all this kind of stuff. You've got all these, and as you mentioned, the student loans, all this kind of thing, and then yeah, you kind of stuck. You're a slave to the system now, right?
Yeah. And it really does make me sad, and I don't use that as an excuse for anybody to be a jerk, but I can definitely understand that they went in with a totally different thought of what it was, or expectation of what they were going to be doing versus what they actually are. It's a lot of paperwork, it's a lot of documentation, it's a lot of, and there's not as much one-on-one with your patients, and it's, just giving them medicine and watching them get worse. And I there again, I just feel so bad. And I can tell that my personal doctor, he doesn't, like, nothing that he specifically said, but like, yet I've known him so long that like I can kind of read between the lines, and like he's frustrated with looking at the computer, when we used to, back when I first started seeing him, there was more face-to-face time, just,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. Like as a kid, the doctor actually was sitting across the table from you, looking at you when they ask questions and stuff. Now, the
Mm-hmm.
doctor is kind of, it's almost like side on to you, looking at the
Yes.
computer while they're typing stuff in or whatever,
Yeah, and they're too busy looking at the screen, because I guess they have to make sure they type it correctly, so they're looking at the screen, and you're sitting over to the side talking to them, and it feels kind of weird because I'm looking over there at him, but he's kind of, I see the profile, and like he'll kind of glance over and stuff, like he was trying to interact, but you're just kind of limited in what you can do in that situation. So I just feel bad for doctors, and I've had a doctor that was a jerk in the past, so I understand that they're out there. Uh, but I just think part of the reason I've had such a good experience, I can't necessarily say that my doctor is like a pro carnivore or pro keto, but he doesn't, like, we don't really talk about diet, like I think, like whenever we have talked about it, I just say that I eat very clean. I've eliminated grains and seed oils, and toxic vegetables, and I don't name what they are. It just happens to be that it's all of them now. I've eliminated toxic vegetables, and so that, when you say it that way, I mean, all the stuff that I've eliminated, there ain't much left, but but I don't say I just eat meat. But I tell them all this, like, yeah, I don't eat, no, nothing with seed oils, no grains, and so yeah.
Yeah, actually, when you frame it that way, it's kind of it's probably easier to convince a doctor that you're eating in a good way if you're actually talking about the bad things that you don't eat, because no one can
Mhm.
argue with you. Oh no, you should be eating lots of seed oils, or yeah, no, that processed food's awesome for you. You should eat that. No one can say that, especially not a doctor,
Well,
right?
tough school of medicine might say it.
Oh, true. That actually, good point. Yeah, there's an exception to every rule, right?
Yes, there is. Most logical people would not, yeah, most logical people would not think that, seed oils and all that are good, or sodas. So you just say, oh, I don't drink sodas, and I might drink seltzer water, which that's about it. That's about all I drink, really. or just regular water. Uh, Sometimes
So,
unsweetened tea once in a while, but that's rare, like if I go out or something. But yeah, so yeah, when you just say all the bad stuff that you don't have, it just sounds like you're doing so good. And really, you're just eating meat.
so just to take a step back there to something you mentioned tufts.
Yeah.
So, for anyone's that might not be aware that's watching, so Tufts came out with this. Tufts University came out with this food compass, which is a traffic light system of what foods you should eat more of and what foods you should avoid, right? So, and the strange thing about this is, um, the companies that funded this research, they got the green lights,
Yes, they
amazingly. So
did.
like Cheerios was a green light and recommended, and ground beef was a red light and not recommended, that kind of thing. So the thing I wanted to ask you about is that feels like it was a little bit of a, um, if I could use a vulgar way of describing this, there's like a kind of like a fart in a spacesuit. It kind of like it came and like it made everyone talk about it for a while, laugh and point, and then it just kind of disappeared. It feels like is I'm not sure. I'm not in the States, but I'm guessing that the you haven't seen much about it since it was released.
I haven't, but to be fair, I don't watch television. I don't. I don't. I have cable or actually satellite, but I don't. I don't watch it. I mean, it's. I don't. I'm not even sure why I have it. It came with my internet, and so I watch documentaries and stuff like that on YouTube. So my exposure really, I've just, and I don't have social media other than I have Instagram, but it's very, it's just like carnivore and, keto related. And then I have, of course, my YouTube channel, and it, I'm very careful about because boy, once you ever watch something, then they start sticking more of it in your feed, and I don't want news. I don't want news in there. So yeah, I don't. I just avoid it. So it's very possible that it's being talked about a whole lot more than what I'm aware of. But I do recall like a few months ago when all that first happened, all the influencers and different people in the low carb keto space or whatever were really pointing that out and being, look, this is ridiculous. I mean, in what really, who could logically say that Lucky Charms are better for you than eggs and bacon? I don't know. Uh, but I do remember that seeing the influencers reacting to all that, but then I haven't really seen that much in terms of like YouTube and stuff. But I don't know really if it's on the news or anything.
Yeah.
Like once in a while, my brother will send me some kind of a release. He keeps up with the news more than I do. And he'll just be like, so did you know that, I don't know, bacon's killing us this week or just whatever, he'll just send a little, he's got that kind of a little sarcastic touch to his personality. And I can have that too sometimes. So yeah, he'll send me that stuff like that. But I just stay away in general from, even paying attention if something does cross my path, because chances are the truth is opposite of what they're saying.
Yeah. I think the further you go down the path of carnivore and all these other things, the more your eyes are kind of open to like there's just an agenda behind everything, you know?
Yeah. When I first started the journey and people be talking like they would refer to big pharma and big food, and I'm thinking, oh, that sounds like conspiracy theory stuff. And I can be skeptical about things, but at the same time, I think most of us are somewhere in the middle, and you've got people on one side or the other, and some of these folks, really have these hardcore conspiracy theories, and if you actually pay attention to them, they can seem logical. So, but when I was first exposed to all this, I just remember thinking, gosh, that sounds so far out there, that there's this whole thing, there's the food conglomerates. And so they give us garbage food and then we have to take the medicine. And so a part of me was like, yeah, that's a little extreme. But then as I just got more and more into it, and I'm like, wow, these people are donating to this, and they keep raising more and more money, but then it's worse. And just the more you get into, especially like how the sugar industry, especially like after Nina Teicholz's book came out, and after let's see, Gary Taubes. I started immersing myself, and that's when I was kind of starting to wake up in terms of and I still don't know that it was actually a conspiracy per se, but now it was just a perfect storm. And now so many people are kind of comfortable with where they are that if anybody disrupts it, it's going to cause a lot of people to lose a lot. But I don't know that anybody actually, there might have been some maybe who nefariously were, I don't know, but I think for the most part, I think it just kind of happened. It just sort of fell into it was just a perfect storm of events, just sequenced perfectly so that it ended up this way. And now it's
Yeah.
like, now what? What are we going to do?
Yeah.
We've got to
I
do
think you're right.
something.
I think you're right. Like, I don't think there's this big overlord kind of going, okay, well, we're going to give people this bad food and make lots of money, and it's going to make them sick. And then they're going to have to go to the doctor, and the doctor's going to prescribe pharmaceuticals. And that's how, they're going to make money. Like, there's no big controlling force like this. I don't think. I think it's just like everyone's trying to do their best job within a company to meet their KPIs, to get bonus that year or to get their pay rise or whatever. And it just so happens that they're all kind of pushing in the direction of the company making the most profit they can make because that benefits them individually.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's, it kind of ends up going in that direction, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's a natural evolution. And the thing is, so all these events converged and it happened, and now they're there. And so if anybody knocks down a part of that foundation, it's just all going to fall. And I don't know. I suspect that there are people who work there who, in those various areas, who maybe are starting to become aware of exactly what's happening, or maybe they don't think about it. But like my son has a friend who is a food scientist, and she actually, her purpose was to make better tasting. She loved cooking and stuff, but she went the food scientist route rather than the chef route. But you know how like Chris Cooking Nashville can take carnivore ingredients and make them taste like something else that we might have known and loved in a previous life, like the macaroni and cheese, which I had not tried his version of that, and I want to, but it requires a lot of work. Which there again, we've already established that I'm not going to work too hard to fix something to eat. So,
Yeah.
but
So
she's a food scientist, and she didn't have a nefarious bone in her body in terms of like, ooh, I want to, create this stuff that people will become addicted to. And it's more like she wanted to craft, you know what I'm saying? Like to craft something.
yeah,
So,
it's like what your goal is and where you end up going is not, and it's not necessarily even conscious, and it's just
yeah.
it moves in that direction because you have to perform in your job, whatever your job is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, so based on your experience, what advice would you give someone who was starting carnivore brand new and they're just like, Carrie, how do I stick to this?
Well, it kind of helps if you don't like to cook because carnivore is easy because like you can, steak or, just burgers or whatever, or you can even get lunch meats and roll it up and snack on that, which I have been known to do. I would say, though, I had an advantage when I started because I was already ketovore. I was already very low carb. So there was no like withdrawal type period, keto flu or whatever. I didn't have any kind of bowel issues or anything like that. So there are a couple of types of people in the world. There are the jump right in people, and then there's the sticky toe in the water. And whichever type you tend to be, I would say, if nothing else, in the beginning, do the typical get rid of the sugar, the grains, seed oils. And then if you happen to have some veg, and then just work your way down. But eliminating those key things is a really major start. And then you can just take it from there. So sticking to it for me is just easy. I would still just, my meals are very simple. It can be a ground beef bowl. It can be, I prep burger patties. I, cook my bacon, all that stuff. So I do plenty of meal prep so that I have food on hand. And I don't give myself an excuse to veer. Now, I'm not saying I'm perfect. So like I will intentionally, like I went with a friend to celebrate their birthday. And so I had a couple bites of cheesecake to help, to celebrate. But that was planned. And in general, that's what I'll do. So, but I don't keep stuff in the house that I know I shouldn't. Because here's the weird thing. Like sometimes I can get, like, I used to buy that Rebel ice cream once in a while. It's supposedly a low carb, and it's cleaner than a lot of ice creams. But nevertheless, it's something like what Dr. Berry would say, keto treats, and how he talks about that. But I could buy it because, like, the store that I go to would sometimes have it buy one, get one free. And that would be the only time I would buy it because it was expensive. But I would put it in the freezer, and I might not eat any of it. And then the next thing you know, I would get it out. But I didn't just eat like some. I would eat the whole thing once I got it out. So I just know better. I just know not to. And I also know that I'll eat sloppier if I don't have meal prep. In other words, I'm liable to go run to the store and grab something that's not so good that I can just nuke instead of, having something already prepared that I can just go ahead and fix up. So that's the key for me. Make it as easy for yourself as possible. Don't give yourself any excuses, and then just make everything else simple. Just have plenty, boiled eggs. It could be, chunks of cheese if you do dairy. I'm not dairy, but I do have the full fat yogurt, and once in a while I'll sprinkle some cheese on my breakfast bowl. But other than that, that's probably about. But you can do it. You can do it, and you'll feel so much better. Your mental clarity. I mean, even if you don't have weight to lose, because I'm here to tell you, not only will your blood sugar be gorgeous, your fasting insulin will be like 3.8. That's what mine was. Yay! That was another good thing. So yeah, you'll feel great. You'll be healthier, and you won't be spending much time cooking because it's so easy. And then you have time to do other stuff. So try it.
Nice. So, Carrie, could you tell us a little bit about your YouTube channel? How can we find you, and what kind of videos have you got on there?
All right. Well, I am at My Meatomorphosis, is MEATO morphosis, and there's a story behind how it got to be an O instead of an A, but that's all right. I like it better with the O. Somebody made a typo. We won't say who. But anyway, and my videos can range from many different topics. I mean, mostly it is about being carnivore. Like I'll fix my breakfast bowls, for example, or do some meal prep or something like that. And not that it's that exciting, but I'm hoping that I'm demonstrating how easy it is because that's the key. It's simple meal prep, and I'll talk about lab results and things like that, or just how I've been doing in general, how I've been feeling, progress with like maybe there's different products that I try. Like I have a hula hoop, and so I do use yeah, I do a hula hoop. So I've got videos of me hula hooping, which yeah, exciting. But and a thing that I had started doing was good morning posts, like little good morning shorts. Now I haven't done those in the last about 6 weeks, but there's a reason. It's because there is so much foliage now, and when it's hard for me when I go take my walk to time it to where I can be somewhere where the sun is coming up where I can capture it. So I have not been doing, I've been trying to think of something else that I could maybe substitute, another form of good morning to all my friends. But anyway, there's just all kinds of random things out there. Like I might even tell about the time that I found Judas Priest Sin After Sin at its in mint condition at
Oh,
McKay's.
wow.
Or I might tell you about digging up my old 80s metal glove. I bought this in like 1982 and I found it when I was going through some stuff. So you just never know what you might find on my channel. Hopefully it'll
Well,
be fun for you, a nice, pleasant diversion from regular life and give you some
awesome.
encouragement.
Mm, awesome. So I'll link to your channel in the description. Carrie, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, thanks, Dave. I've enjoyed it.